have stories that are far greater than what we get to know in that 5-minute conversation. Hi there, welcome back to my channel, it's Kanisha. So today's video is about how to network and kind of like what to expect when you're going to networking events, and just share the content that I wish I had when I was at university and the things that I kind of hoped someone like I could go online and find out for myself. For me, I guess the time that I got most interested about networking events was probably my second year of university. I kind of do wish I did get into it a bit more in my first year, but you know, you learn as you go along. And I'd probably say one of the things that got me into going to networking events in that time was because I was looking for some internships, work experience opportunities, just things that I could do to improve my CV and get an idea of what I wanted to go into within business. And so I remember like the first few events that I'd go to, I'd be like super awkward. I wouldn't know like how to approach people, what am I gonna say about myself, what did I actually want to get out of them, and what could I have like done to sort of feel more prepared before going into it. So with this video, I kind of hope I can shed light into that and what I learned from my own experiences going into, you know, networking situations. One of the first things that I'd say you should do that I wish I did more of at the beginning was to research. Like honestly, researching would have made me a lot calmer in kind of knowing who I could expect there, but also kind of feel confident to know what kind of organisations I wanted to speak to, what kind of people I wanted to get in touch with. For most events that are networking, they tend to either email out a list of partnering organisations that you can expect to be there. They might even let you know who the key speakers are so you can have a look into them before you attend. And by doing this gives you like a clear picture on kind of like who to expect and the kind of conversations you'd want to get out of it. So let's say for example, it's an organisation and it lists that they're going to have recruitment teams there, or it's going to be the CEO or someone in a career that you might be interested in. You know from then that you're going in there for the recruiters with the mind of like passing your CV to them or finding out what the recruitment process is so you know what to expect. Or if it's a CEO, then you're kind of going there with questions in your head about what you want to know about your organisation, their own experiences and their own journey. So by doing that research, you kind of have prepared a few questions that you can comfortably approach these people and find out more for yourself. The second thing kind of leads on to the first thing I mentioned about if the recruitment team is there. I honestly don't see any harm in having like your CV there with you just so you can give it to them. You literally don't need anything. Maybe they'll have a look at it as they're travelling back to the office, or they can even have some way to contact you. So I definitely see no harm in bringing your CV along with you. An alternative to this is I highly recommend you create a LinkedIn profile if you haven't got one already. This is something that you can set up in literally 10 minutes, and LinkedIn is like an online networking platform whereby you can connect with people that you've met in the past or connect with people that you're interested in getting to know more about their career and then follow along with their journey. And it's another great place to document your own career journey as you're starting out. By having this, it's a nice, easy way to pass it on to anyone you're interested in staying in touch with after the event. And with LinkedIn, you can find things that they might be interested in, so you kind of like have a discussion topic beforehand. So LinkedIn is super useful and definitely worthwhile in creating and keeping that up to date as possible. The next thing that I say, and that helped me a lot in the early days of networking, was to bring someone along that you know, or if you know somebody else is going to be there at the event, you're kind of like a bit more comfortable in breaking that initial ice. So by having someone that I knew there, I just found I was a lot more confident, and you kind of just already don't have to think about, oh my gosh, I feel so awkward being like on my own and standing in like the corner. You kind of have someone to feel comfortable like approaching other people with, because you're all going to bounce off of each other. But don't fear if you are alone at these networking events. It might actually be a case where you look more approachable if you're on your own. And I find that's the case for sometimes, that when I go into like a networking room and if I'm on my own, I sort of like scan to see who else is on their own and use that as a conversation starter to be like, oh, you know, I noticed you're by yourself, like, is this your first event that you've been to that's like this? So let's say it's hosted by a certain company. Is this the first time you've been to this company's event? And already you start to have something where you can even feel more comfortable knowing that somebody else is there for the first time as well. So that helps a lot. So if you can go with someone you know, go for it. If you can't, that's okay. That might actually lead to you approaching more people because you're all in the same boat. The next thing that can kind of be a bit tricky when you're at a networking event is kind of figuring out what is it that you're telling people about yourself. So I remember when I was doing my year in industry where I'd set up my own business, and this meant I would go to a lot of networking events to promote my business, to find out if there's anyone that could help me with like printing t-shirts, if there's someone that might be able to help me with creating a website, all those sort of stuff. Those events were there to bring other entrepreneurs, other business owners in a space where they can connect with each other. And every single networking event that I went to, they'd always do a 20-second, 30-second or a minute where they get every single attendee to stand up and to introduce themselves and their business. So I remember like the first two that I'd gone to, I was just so clueless on what to say that A, I would opt to be like one of the last people to speak during it, or B, I literally let people know that I feel so nervous as like the first thing that I'd say. But one of the things that I did learn from that experience and having seen other people was that you know who you are, you know what it is that you want people to know about you, so there's no getting it wrong in worrying about what you're gonna say. So I would lead off by introducing my name, that I'm a student, that I set up my own business, what the business was about, what problem it was solving, and where it's at the moment, and then finally kind of what I look to develop with the business. So I'd maybe add that, if you know anybody that does website making, I'd love to speak further about that, or if you know someone that works on marketing, I'd definitely love to talk a bit further about that. And by doing that, people build a picture about what it is that you do, where they are thinking in their head, like, what can I do to sort of help this person? Is it someone that I know that I could connect them with, or is it I'm now going to approach them to let them know that I provide this service and get the conversation going in that way. So it really is a good way to let people know about who you are. But in the scenario of being in a networking event and it's, you're not pitching a business, you're talking about yourself, I think one great way to introduce yourself would probably to look at it in 4 parts. The first part would definitely be the obvious, which is like your name. The second part would be what is your current profession, so what organisation are you with, or what is your current role within that organisation. In the third part, it would be good to mention something that is of interest to you. So if you like to go travelling, mention you like to go travelling and kind of like an interesting place that you've been. Or if you love to bake, why not mention that to people? Or if you like cycling, if you like even video games, mention like a game that's really piqued your interest, or you're learning something new, you can mention that as well. The idea behind this is that it can help find something that's in common with the other person. And I say this because when I was a student, it was great to mention that I was a student, but I realised that being a student is not a personality trait. Like literally, like being a student is not a personality trait. So if you just ended it at saying, I'm a student, nobody really knows anything about you. But if you say things where it's like, oh, I'm part of this committee, or I'm part of this society, any of those are interests, things that are hobbies that people can be like, oh, you know what, that's something that I'm also quite passionate about, or something that I'm interested to learning more about, like tell me about that. And so that third part, I find, really gets a conversation going much further than what it is about like specifically career talk. And then with the fourth part, it would be really worth mentioning something that you'd hope to build on, get involved in, or I'd mention how I'm quite interested in building a career within a technology company. I'd throw that information in, or if you're into finance, what you might be interested in, add something that you're hoping to go into so that they kind of have an idea of the industries you're interested in. By doing this, you're kind of allowing the other person to know a bit further about who you are and kind of like what you do, and just lets the conversation flow. But in that, I guess you're probably wondering, how do you say this organically in a conversation? Because I guess the 4 parts, saying it all together, almost adds up to be like a minute of talking, would work really well when it's a situation where you're standing up in front of a group of people and you're doing introduction. But when it is having like that one-to-one conversation, you can just go about it by shortening each section that you're saying. So it'd be like, hi, my name's Kanisha, I'm a student, I'm involved with the Women in Business Society as the president. But besides that, I really enjoy traveling and seeing new places, and I'm hoping building a career within tech. So that's kind of like a shortened version of that longer introduction, but still it gives that other person an idea of who you are. And then obviously you then ask them to, introduce themselves, and you can find out about them. And then after this conversation, now's a good time to be exchanging details. So LinkedIn, connect with them, whether it's the email address, whatever you feel most comfortable with exchanging, that's a good chance to, do that connection. Out of all the things that I've shared in this video, I think one of the most fundamental things that I think anyone who goes into a networking situation, a networking event should have in mind is that everybody is worth speaking to. The reason why I say this is because often we have quite a tunnel vision when we go to an event, that you kind of only want to speak to someone that's in your industry, or you only want to connect with other students, that you would then ignore other people that are in the room because they might not fit into what it is that you have in mind for being something that you learn for your career, if that makes sense. And I say this because you might be in a room where, you've seen someone, you've asked them what they do, and they're like, oh, I'm into plumbing, or I'm an electrician, and your mind automatically goes, that's not what I want to do, so that's not really useful for me, and you kind of like brush off the conversation. But what you don't know is what that person's career journey has been to get them to that place. Maybe they've had a career change, maybe they are still an entrepreneur and they've got their own plumbing business that they're running, and all businesses face mostly the same problems and the same experiences, so there's still something worthwhile learning. Or that actually they're a plumber but they're also into traveling, and that's something that you're quite passionate about yourself, or that there's other connections that you find that go beyond just what the job title is. And I think for a lot of networking events, you kind of have a preconception that you're having conversations to determine whether someone has something you can get out of it, and that's where it becomes a little bit limiting. And one thing we have to remember is that people have stories that are far greater than what we get to know in that 5-minute conversation, that it's still worth connecting with them. And if it's not them that might be able to help you directly in your career, it might be someone else that they know that's within their network that they can connect you with. And vice versa, like you may not be able to provide a direct service or a benefit to the other person you're speaking to, but that doesn't say the people in your own network might not be someone that might be helpful for them. So in that situation, you now become the connector of these two people. And I think that's such a powerful thing that we underestimate, is our ability to connect people to each other, and the value that they can get from building that connection with each other. Without knowing it, might have made two people who they don't know each other become business partners. You might be that dot that just needed to connect these two people, and they go on to make the next biggest idea. Or that your friend is looking to employ someone who does, you can make websites, you can do that kind of things, and a friend who's just graduated as, with a computer science degree. Why not connect these two people and, see what happens for them? Like, that's the beautiful thing about networking, is that you are coming with your own network, someone else is coming with their own network, and it's just networks colliding together. But you wouldn't have known that because you might have written this person off because they don't directly service you. So that's, if nothing else you take away from this video, I think the most important thing is that every single person is worthwhile speaking to, and just getting to know a bit more about what it is that they're about. So having seen this video, I hope it's benefit to you on kind of like what to expect when you go networking, and how to go about introducing yourself and to building these connections. The thing about networking is it's a muscle. The more you do it, the better you become. And if I compare the way that I was at my first networking event versus where I am now, even with the confidence, it's like a completely different person, if I'm completely honest. And the only way that I was able to get to this was because I practiced, and you get a bit better. And I can't lie, there definitely were times when I messed up, said the wrong thing, kind of wish I said a bit more about myself on this thing, or kind of said, wish I didn't say that. But in each of those things are things that you've learned and you've taken on to the next experience. So where you can, practice, find out about networking events. The earlier that you can do it, the more opportunities you might be able to open yourself up to. So whether that's work experience, internships, or even a full-time role, a lot of time it's your network that can help you open up those doors to places where your application may still be in the computer system. That's the hard reality, is that your network can be that missing link to making sure a recruiter sees your application. But yeah, have fun, enjoy it, and make the most of it. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video or have your own tips that you have that you want to share with other people, write them down in the comments. We'd love to read it and learn from you, your own experience and the things that you kind of like have learned from them and want to share with other people. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.